Hello.
Hey everyone. Good to see some familiar faces. Thanks for your patience. We were waiting a little bit for Damien. Damien's a Cedar Commissions artist that is supposed to be talking with you all today. And so I haven't heard back from him this morning, and I haven't heard back from him when I've been reaching out now. So I'm hoping he's doing okay. What we'll plan to do right now is take any questions that I can answer, and then any other questions that come up, we can take those down and then forward those on to a couple past Cedar Commissions artists, and we'll send those out via email, share those out to everybody. So I'm sorry that Damien's not here to be asked for direct questions, but I think that'll probably be the best route forward, considering circumstances. So just a quick introduction to everybody. My name is Robert Lehmann. I work at the Cedar. I'm the booking and artistic manager there, and I've been program lead for the Cedar Commissions for the this last year, and then will be for this coming year as well. Shasa is here, and Shasa will be helping with the moderation. Do you want to introduce yourself, Shasa?
Yeah, hello. My name is Shasa. I started working at the Cedar in November as the marketing and programs assistant. So yeah, that's what I do.
Great. So we will go ahead and hop into this a little bit. Yeah, I'll start off with a couple different questions that are just kind of like commonly asked questions that we get about the Cedar Commissions, and then we'll move into an open Q&A portion. So some of the questions that we get, well, I guess we'll start off with this one. Some things that people ask about is like, what things did you use your budget for as an artist? People use it in different ways. Typically, they want to have like a good portion of it where you're paying yourself for your time composing. Some artists will opt to take a certain amount of time off, whether that's like 1 day a month, 1 day a week, a couple hours a week, something like that. Where they will actually use that portion of the commission just as payment for yourself for lost wages from the other job. So payment for self, then payment for collaborators as well. And that's in terms of like rehearsal time, in terms of payment for the final performance. And then some people will also budget in like studio time, like working in a rehearsal space as well. You are allowed to put equipment, like equipment purchases as part of your budget, but we ask that they not be the main focus of the budget. Yeah, and the gear for the Cedar Commissions, it's really geared towards that final live piece. It's not a commission that's aimed at like recording a new album. So if we see a lot of items that say, hey, this is for, recording this album in the studio, that's like a red flag for us. It's more geared towards that live performance, which obviously can be turned into a recorded album, but it's not geared towards that as the process. It's geared towards that live performance at the end. Yeah, I think that's kind of like a framework of what sometimes the budgets are used for. One other common question that we get is like, where were you in your trajectory as an artist when you participated in the Cedar Commissions? For most artists, or for some of the artists that I worked with this last year, it's artists who'd been, playing gigs around town, who'd been writing music, maybe had an album or two under their belt, but hadn't really like broken out into the main scene. I think depending on each artist, it's like Jerome's definition is pretty flexible. So you may have been playing music for, 2 years, and that's considered an emerging artist. You may have been playing music for 15 years, 15 or 20 years, but still haven't quite broken through yet. And so that would still be considered an emerging artist as well. Yeah, for some people, they may have had a lot of experience playing in bands and being part of a larger ensemble, but this is one where they want to focus on their solo voice for the first time, and that might be the big shift for them. For other people, it might be the opposite. They may be more of a solo artist, and this is them working with collaborators, and that being the big push, is writing for a full ensemble as opposed to just writing for themselves. But having that evidence from their solo work that they would be able to take on that ensemble work as well. And then another question that I think that we get quite a bit is, in terms of an application, what is most helpful? And then in terms of the process afterwards, is there flexibility for that project to evolve? Is there flexibility for that idea to evolve? I would say the more specific that you can be with your application, and the clearer of an idea that you can give of that final performance and that final that final performance, that final experience, and how you're going to get there, those are going to be the stronger applications. I think one of the things that people have questions with is like, I've written this very specific project idea. I've written this project where I'm not going to give an example, but I've written this very specific project idea. Like, do I have to execute it exactly that way? And once you have the grant, there's a lot of flexibility in terms of how that evolves. Some people wrote, like one of the artists last year was like, I want to write a full visual performance and have like a music video for each of the songs that I'm performing. And so that morphed to actually just focusing on writing the music for those songs itself and creating that full narrative arc, but not including that video element. There were other artists in the past that said, hey, I would love to create a full short musical that's like 30 to 40 minutes, and ultimately decided it's like, hey, I'm just going to write like 5 to 6 songs from that musical, not like the full 12. I'm trying to think of other artists who have pivoted in past years. And so I would say there's a lot of flexibility. And then I would also say that there are quite a few artists that move forward with the project that they proposed, and the final product is very similar to what they outlined in the grant as well. Yeah, and then in terms of just like what makes a compelling application, I think I was touching on this earlier, but as specific as you can be with that final idea, that's really important. I think articulating why it's important to you, why it's important in a larger context, whether that's local, whether that's societal, and then also, providing work samples that show like you've got the chops, you've got the experience, that you're going to be able to pull this project off. I think those are 3 key things. Yeah, let me just look over these questions as well here. I'm looking at some of the questions that people had beforehand. One of the questions that came up that I think I touched on in the last webinar was what did your work samples sound like, and like what makes a solid work sample. I would say it definitely doesn't need to be connected to the project that you're working on. Like, you don't have to have like a prototype of like, this is the type of music, or like this is like the first song from it. I think what we want to see is we want to know what your role is in terms of that work sample. Were you the composer? Were you the producer? Which instruments did you play? What was your role in it? Were you the lyricist? And then we want to be able to see that translate to the project that you're proposing. So as long as you're able to demonstrate to us that like you've got the chops for it, that's the most important part. It's not necessarily stuff that is directly tied to the project that you're proposing. And then in terms of like audio quality or video quality, that's something where the panelists are instructed to not take that into account. It's more so, you know, more so focusing in on like what's there, like what are the core elements that are there. You don't have to have like super high-end production in order for it to be considered strongly. So I think that those are most of the pre-questions. Those are the most of the pre-questions that I have that I feel equipped to answer. Yeah, I think we can open it up to the open Q&A.
Hi. Am I here?
Hello.
Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. I'm Ryan. How are you? I've got like the list of them, but I'll just do like one at a time.
Sure.
So I've started trying to do my 3-minute and my 1.5-minute videos, and it's like rapid fire, like trying to get kind of all the ideas into a 3-minute video for the first bit. If we're at 3:15, if we're at 3:12, any concerns? Is that indicative like this guy can't actually follow the first instructions, so he might not be able to follow like the 45-minute instructions as well on the concept itself?
Yeah, I would love to be able to be like more flexible on it, but just
Keep it
in
under
terms
3.
of being, in terms of being fair to
Yeah.
everyone.
Keep
just
rewriting
keeping
it until you get under 3.
Mhm.
Okay, cool. I'll open it back
It is
up.
quick. It is a quick
is,
3
yeah.
minutes.
I can do it. I can do it. It's cool.
And then were there other questions that you had, Ryan?
Sorry, I muted myself. Yeah, I probably have some more if no one's ready. Let's see. In terms of, so I have the core concept really crystal clear, and I'm already getting like a million ideas. Like as I go through life, like, oh my God, that one would be perfect. That one would, like song concepts and whatnot. I know that the song concepts are supposed to be fresh and new and never before performed. Any concerns if a person starts working on songs now with the hopes that they get approved? And if you know what I'm like, I'd like to start writing right now.
I think as long as it's something that you keep private, you know, it's not something where you're like, oh, I'm gonna like play shows with this material or like start putting it up on SoundCloud.
Yeah, I'm private on everything anyway, so no worries there. So
yeah,
okay,
I think that's totally fine.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna open it back up to anyone else again.
Hi, I have a question. I'm on the go, so I have my camera off, but it's on now. Thank you for holding this. I have 2 questions. One is about budgeting. So to me, it sounds like the $500 project/performance budget is like distinct from the $4,000, and I'm wondering like how much of the $4,000 needs to be accounted for in the budget, like just as much of it as we need, or all of it, is one question. Yeah, I'll ask that question first.
Sure. Yeah, I would recommend like itemizing out. Well, you don't have to have it super detailed, but I would recommend accounting for all 4,000 of those dollars.
Okay.
And then, yeah, in terms of the production budget, that is something that is separate. It's held on to for that final performance. And that's something that typically people will either use it for a tech rehearsal in the space. And so that's something that unfortunately we aren't able to offer everybody. It's something that we don't have built in as far as the program budget, but it's something that I would love to apply for the next round of funding. But if you feel like your production is something where it's like, yeah, this could really benefit from like performing this in the Cedar space, like one full time, like before we have the performance, that's something that some people use it for. If your performance has a lot of different tech moving parts involved, like if there's projection involved, then I'd recommend booking a tech rehearsal. And then also people use that for paying out the performers at the end, or for if there's special backline requests, like let's say that like they specifically need to like rent out, I don't know, like a Nord Lead 3 synthesizer or something like that, then that could be used for that. Or there was a Ethiopian artist who needed to buy a special instrument mic. And so that was something that she used that production budget for.
Okay, so so the 4,000 and 500 should all be kind of itemized. Everything I should have that all laid out.
I think,
Okay.
yeah, sorry.
Okay, cool. And my other question, maybe this is could be directed to Damien, but I think one thing I'm wondering about and that I'm feeling the most stuck on is that my kind of artistic process usually involves finding, like, I just create what I create, and then through lines or meanings kind of emerge on the other side of that. And so I'm trying, like, I do have a general idea of like thematically what I want to explore, and I'm wondering how, like, if artists, or if you have seen artists kind of create applications that are specific and like have clear infrastructure, but also have flexibility for meanings to change. And I'm wondering, like, yeah, if you or maybe another artist or an artist would have suggestions for like creating clear infrastructure that also has flexibility.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's tough. I feel like Damien would be more equipped to answer this question as somebody who's an artist who went through the process. I think in terms of on the facilitating side of things, I think as long as you can give us a strong concept for what you're thinking those themes are at this point, you know, as I was saying before, there's a lot of freedom for that to change. There's a lot of flexibility in terms of what that final might look like. Yeah, and I'm realizing that, like, the artistic process that you've outlined is, like, in some ways very different than what we're requesting in, like, the application form. Just like, give us a specific idea how you see it laid out. It's something where there were a couple artists that I reached out to that were going to be potential speakers on here that said, hey, I can't make it today, but I'm available for email questions. And so that's something where I can share people's emails.
Sure, that'd be super
something
helpful.
that you could answer, something that they could answer.
Sure, yeah, that'd be awesome. Thank you.
Cool.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
So I've got a quick question here. It was for a panelist, but just kind of open-endedly asking what different people that have gotten the commissions in the past, what their favorite part of the commission experience was for them. So I'm not sure if, Robert, if you're able to speak to that or not, but that was just kind of one of the questions I was curious about.
Yeah, I can share. It'll probably be heavily influenced just by the last 2 years. Those are the artists that I've been in direct contact with as part of facilitating the program. For Hassan, who performed this last year, one of the things that he found most valuable was connecting with other musicians and kind of like that forced collaboration. And so he felt like he finally had the money to be able to, like, pay people. And so, like, people, like, want to work with him more because they know that, like, he paid people in the past. And, you know, within the project itself, he felt like he was able to connect with some people that, you know, maybe he otherwise wouldn't have been able to connect with. And, you know, people who are like mentor figures to him now. And having those connections moving forward felt like it was really, really impactful. I think in a similar vein, AJ from this last year was talking about how amazing it was to work. And hers was an interesting situation because in terms of classical music, like, all the classical musicians from, like, Minnesota Orchestra, St. Paul Chamber Orchestra, they were all off last year in terms of not doing the regular concerts. And so they were available to perform in her piece. And so one of the things that she found super, super valuable was being able to, A, like, compose for those professional musicians, and then B, like, being able to rehearse with professional musicians and being able to have a couple different rehearsals where they were able to work on the music. The musicians were able to give her feedback on it, like, this is what works, this is what doesn't work. She found that super, super helpful. And then similarly, just in terms of contacts with people afterwards, she was saying that she felt really, really grateful that she was able to connect with people in the Minnesota Orchestra, like Maria Jetty as a soprano as well. And feels like those connections are gonna, help her. They've already helped her in terms of like landing future gigs. So those are kind of on the collaborator side of things. For other people, quite a few people write projects that are pretty tied to identity or like family stories. Ilan Blanc was one of those artists who proposed a project that was like a narrative tale of his, I think it was grandfather's or maybe great grandfather's, immigration story from immigrating from Europe to Mexico and escaping the Holocaust. And so for him, he felt like it was just incredibly meaningful to be able to like sit with this concept and find a way to like articulate his grandfather's story in a musical form, and also to step into the lead role as like a lead writer for a group instead of being more focused on writing for an ensemble. Or sorry, that doesn't make sense in terms of being more a part of an ensemble. And so that was something that he found really, really fulfilling about the Cedar Commissions. For a couple of the artists this last year, a couple of the MCs said like, prior to this, they hadn't spent a lot of time working on production for their own beats. But during the past 6 months, they just had a deep dive in production, and they felt like it was very empowering to be able to create their own tracks instead of having to like wait to hear something from someone else and work on their track that way. And then I think in terms of one of the really, one of the aspects of COVID this last year was that none of the artists were able to like hang out in person or build that cohort really in person. But in terms of 2 years ago, I know that quite a few of the cohort members just really appreciated those meetings together and being able to talk with artists as peers and get feedback, get different ideas for like, hey, I have writer's block, like what would you recommend? They're like, oh, like try buying some like different colored lights, and try like coming in like first thing in the morning, just like kind of throwing out, I don't know, just kind of having like that hive mind of like putting those questions out there and being able to say like, hey, this is what works for me. Like this is something you could try. They really appreciated that cohort bonding as well. And I think the cohort from this year, they've been pretty excited to connect with each other now that things have opened up again, and they've met up to just hang out and jam. And I think they will continue to do that.
Oh, cool.
As well.
I did have one other question too, just kind of like on the other side of that question. So again, I'm not sure if you have this feedback or not, but I was curious kind of what difficulties panelists have had during the commission process throughout just creating their work and how they got through it, I guess, when they did hit adversity. So not sure if you can answer it, but yeah, I was wondering that too.
Yeah, that's something that I feel like would be best answered by, an email or, a conversation from one of the past Cedar Commissions artists, especially this last year. I think there are some things that I can share. Like one of the artists, Sana, was having a hard time like kind of getting into the creative space, and they were the artists that I was talking about in terms of like, oh, like maybe try different lighting or like maybe try these different writing exercises. I think for most of the artists this last year, there was like a certain point where people were feeling a lot of stress in terms of like, I don't know if this project is going to get done, you know, like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to execute this in the way that I want to. And what I know is that people found ways to get to that end product, but I don't know what that, you know, what that journey was from point A to point B. So I think that would be a good question to, you know, put out via email.
Okay, sounds good. Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Can you hear me? We're all
Yeah.
good?
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, I kind of just had, I had a couple questions, but just, I can't remember the second one right now, but just the main one, you know, you talk about having 2 audio or video samples of work, and they have to total 5 minutes in length, or like no more than 5 minutes in length. So I'm just gonna keep it real. That's a struggle, because pretty much everything I have out as a piece of work is like, each one single piece is like 5 minutes and or more. So I guess, like, you know, you do say on here that you can, like, you know, just say like a certain part of the track to listen to. I guess, so like, my question is, I have my stuff up on Bandcamp. Would I be able to like send links to tracks on Bandcamp and just say like, hey, listen to 1 minute 27 to the end of the song, or 1:27 to 2:27 or something like that? Is that cool?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can say like, yeah, start at 1 minute, you know, finish out at 2 minutes and 35 seconds. Yeah, that's totally fine, as long as you give us those timestamps.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Munir.
Hi, Muni.
I have a question because I don't have any knowledge of music. I don't know how to write music. I don't know how to read music. But a lot of friends pushing me to apply for this thing. You know, after you know, some people came to the show that I made. Yeah, because I also been performing for Drone Not Drones, and also for the odd measure at the Cedar couple years ago. My question is, do I eligible to apply for this? Because this is a commission, which means I have to write music in which I don't know how to write music. But in my, I don't know, in my imagination, in the workshop, it might be somebody will guiding me to write the music or something like that. Is that true or no?
Could you say that last part one more time?
Okay, because in my thought, during the workshop, there might be somebody can help me to write the music. Because I don't know how to write music. I don't know what is G, I don't know what is C. I don't know about all these things. It makes me thinking about how Tan Dun write that music on the ghost opera, using the stone, using those kind of things. I don't know how to write that you know, that music note on that tones or tunes.
Yeah.
You understand my question?
I think so.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so we've actually had quite, you know, it's like people bring so many different types of music experience. You know, there are certain people who bring like a really knowledgeable classical background, and they're like, oh yes, this is G, this is C, these are all the different modes, these are all the different scales, and you know, they're able to like communicate and write their music in that way. There are other artists that are taught totally by ear, and they've spent a lot of time playing music, a lot of time singing, but they they don't have like those notation skills, but they know how to like record a melody, like record the thing that they have in their head, and then be able to communicate that to a musician, right? And so
Yes.
I think we would just want to see that you would be able to come up with those ideas and be able to lead an ensemble with like the music that you're hearing in your head, and being able to share that with other people.
Yeah, because some part of, so my background is, my basic thing is visual art,
Mm,
and then in my idea it's kind of like, is it possible, music in abstract way? We know in a total improvisation there is some kind of like most likely most abstract things,
mm,
but I can see that as an abstract, but it's in music.
mm,
And because also it's kind of like questioning to myself if it's because the way I play music is mostly spontaneous improvisation.
mm.
It's more what is come from the gut. That's why I'm kind of like adopting myself to, I'm eligible to apply for this commission thing, because I don't know how to write the music, and I don't know how the other musician will read the music that I want to develop about the team that I want to represent on this project. I have special team for this project if I can apply, if I'm eligible to apply.
Yeah, I feel like that would probably be a really good question for Damien, because he's an improvisational jazz artist. Just in terms of the project that he applied for, like what are the things that he communicated about that while still leaving that free room for improvisation as well.
If you don't mind, can I jump in on
Yes.
Manure's question? Just to clarify, and I think I have kind of a similar question for me too. So you're not asking for us to represent dots on the page as far as what we're able to do. You're just looking for us to either write something, write it down, like here's my idea, like a paragraph of what our idea is, or a video of what our idea is. You're not looking for us to show you proof that we can write down dots on the page. You just want to see us. So you're looking for either a recording. I'm just asking, this is a question. Are you looking for a recording specifically to show that we've been able to do that in the past, and to also show that we can convey those ideas to other people in the past too? Is that what you're asking for in terms of?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a specific theme about this for this project, for this commission project. I have special a theme for that thing. That's
Okay. I guess my question was to Robert. Robert, is this?
Oh, I
is this
see.
Yeah, sorry. So my question is for Robert. Sorry about that. Is this the commission is asking for just proof that you can write, that you can create this? And when we say write, we're not actually meaning writing dots on the page. We're actually creating music, and is the proof of that based on the recordings that we're presenting to the commission? Okay.
Yeah, the recordings that you're presenting to us, and there's part of it that is like the artist resume, or like description of your artistic background and what your experiences have been there. Yeah, we've definitely had a mix of artists from all different, like across the spectrum. Like AJ's like, I don't know, she could write. I was gonna say a dumb joke, but they're just gonna be like, she could write like a million dots, like, yeah, she's just got like classical composer chops up the wazoo. And then other artists, they bring like a lot more of like production know-how, and they've totally been taught by ear, but like they couldn't write that out on like a music staff at all, you know. But they know what they want it to sound like, and they're able to like get those sounds. You know, or artists that like are guitarists, don't know how to notate it, but like they can play the melody line for somebody else and say like, this is what I would like it to sound like. You know, it's like, I don't know what notes these are, but this is what I would like it to sound like.
Just to clarify, so basically what you're trying to say is that you just want to know that you can communicate your musical ideas to either an audience and or other musicians.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah.
Did that help, Scott?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
I have a question.
Oh,
Go ahead.
I was just wondering, like for my idea, I had a like visual aspect, and I was wondering if that is something that I should like include into the 4,000 budget, or if that would be something that's like included with like tech.
And yeah, I guess I probably need to ask some questions about like what you're planning. Like, would it be projections? Would it be like physical?
Video. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Like a video projection.
Yeah, you'd probably so like the Cedar has a projector. It's not HD. I will be the first to say that. It's better than it used to be because we got a new projection bulb. If you're looking to project like textures behind you and something like that, it's great for that. If you're looking to project things that are like crisp and like very visually appealing, in that way, it's not going to be your best friend. And that would be something where, you know, part of the budget you'd probably want to, you know, figure out like how much would an HD projector, you know, cost.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, in terms of including that as part of either that $4,000 or the $500, yeah, I guess the questions that I would have is like what money is budgeted out for the people who are like creating the visuals, and then like what tech will you need?
It would be me creating it.
Great.
So like I would just need like a camera and a projector, literally. Cool. But yeah, I was just wondering if that would be part of the 4,000, or it would be like something that's like after as a tech.
That's a good question. Yeah, I think probably the projector, like if you needed to rent a different projector, I'd put that in the production budget.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the camera, if I like, yeah, like a camera.
Yeah. That one maybe would go in the original budget. I'd put that in the original budget because that is something that would happen like pre-performance.
Yeah, like I'd want it to
performance itself.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
I have one more question in terms of like if there was going to be, or I think my idea would involve like a research component, or like just gathering information from people that I might want to like compensate or like pay money to like learn things. Would that be an appropriate thing to include in the 4,000?
Definitely.
Oh, okay.
Oh, sorry, you were gonna say.
Oh yeah, just was wondering if it's not like explicitly musical.
Yeah.
Okay.
There were one of the artists last year, Farrington, was planning to do some interviews with local community members and had budgeted out parts to say like, hey, I'm gonna pay this person like $50 to do like an hour interview with them or something like that.
Cool, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah. And then there is also a mentoring component. And so there's $250 that is just a stipend for a mentor for the program. And that can either be something that you choose in terms of like who you want to work with, or somebody where we can talk together and say like, who would it make sense to reach out to? Like, who would you want to reach out to from these contacts?
Okay, and but that won't be that's not part of the pre-budget situation, is it?
No.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Can I piggyback on that?
Sure.
I'm assuming I probably know the answer, but thank you, Andrew. Great question, because I have a simple budget done, but there's a good chance that I might actually need to do some of the same thing, a little bit of research. So as a budget submitted, and all of a sudden I go from, let's say, like $1,000 for my collaborator and $1,000 for equipment, and I'm paying myself some money. As I go, if I need to pay other people a little bit of stipend here and there just to make my project richer, I can take that out of my own pay, I assume. Yeah, cool.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I do have other questions if we're ready for another question.
I think we are.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
transition.
Yeah.
Collaborator. So I have one collaborator in mind that is a professional musician. I write all of my own stuff. I play all of my own stuff. But once in a while, I play with a professional musician that plays just about anything and everything: drums, guitar, ukulele, you name it. I am the epitome of emerging or below that. But the guy that I work with, that I plan on working a little bit with, is truly a professional musician. Is that an issue?
No, I don't think so. No.
Okay.
That,
So we don't both need to be emerging.
No, yeah, I mean, like for AJ's performance, she was working with all professional musicians from Minnesota Orc, and Maria Jetty, who's been a professional opera singer for like the last couple decades. So
cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And Robert, just to clarify, there's a difference between emerging and professional. Is that correct? So basically, my understanding, and this is also wondering if I'm eligible for this too, I can be a professional musician, but not have like national or international scope in terms of my viability, my visibility. That's what you're kind of looking at. I mean, I know it's kind of a vague sort of idea, but I understand there's a difference between what I do as a professional musician and what somebody like Pat Donahue or somebody like, somebody who has a larger national renown, or the late Peter Strushko. That type of renown would have a difference between, there'd be a difference between that and what I'm looking to do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've done a lot of collaborations as an ensemble, but not as much as a solo act. So
yeah,
I'm assuming that still allows me to be eligible for what I'm looking for.
Yeah. I would say, like, even if you're a musician who's working as a musician full time and like getting paid for it, but you haven't had that type of like breakthrough, you'd still be eligible, and likewise on the other side of that spectrum, it's like maybe you've only played like a couple paid gigs, but it is something that you are taking really seriously, like you would also be as eligible as well. One of the big parts of it is that we're looking for people who are working as vocational artists, so people who want or currently have music as like a main part of their life. So
I noted that Adam Levy is a previous recipient, and he was part of the Honey Dogs for like 25 years. So I know that his previous experience didn't either dissuade him or disallow him from submitting something for the commission. So, so thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, of course. I just got a text from a different Cedar Commissions artist who I was reaching out to, and I'm gonna just quick text her back and see if she would be down to hop on for a little bit. if she's available.
I'm gonna have to leave right now, so thank you,
Sure.
Robert, for organizing this, and thanks. Nice to meet all of you.
Thanks for coming, Scott.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Would other people be curious if somebody is available, if a Cedar Commissions artist is available?
Would love it.
Would love it. Okay. I'm gonna quick hop on the phone quick with her. All right, so it looks like Tiara is going to hop on for a little bit here. She'll be able to answer a couple questions. So we'll just wait a second. Thanks everybody for your patience. And thanks everybody for just rolling with, you know, Damien not showing up. I still haven't heard from him, so I just hope that he's okay. But I'm glad that Tiara is going to be able to hop in for a little bit here.
I have a couple other questions while we wait. If you want something to do,
Sure.
or should we wait?
I think Tiara is right here.
Oh, let's wait then. Let's wait.
Cool. Hey, Tiara. Oh, looks like it's still connecting. There we go. Hey, Tiara. Welcome.
Hey, how's it going?
It's good. Thanks for hopping on last minute.
Yeah,
I
no
appreciate
worries.
it. So I
Echo.
think, oh yeah, go ahead.
I was just saying hi to everybody.
How's it going?
Good, thanks.
So yeah, Tiara, would you want to give a quick introduction of yourself? Tiara was a really awesome member of the cohort this last year.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm Tearra Oso. I grew up doing traditional Afro Puerto Rican music. So it was the enslaved Africans doing this music in Puerto Rico. And so what I did is took the rhythms that I learned from that growing up and created music in English and Spanish. So yep, I just did my Cedar show in February, and then it aired in the beginning of March. And super crazy process this year because, you know, everything was virtual. So that just created another barrier. Well, more than one for sure. But yeah, for us, it was just something different and a lot of different steps that weren't taken before. So for me, since I had 6 other members that I wanted to rehearse with, but we didn't want to rehearse too much, I ended up like recording everything, like a scratch track of my whole show to be able to send out to folks. So it ended up being good for me, but you know, it's like another thing that takes up time that you got to figure out, and just doing a lot of things more digitally. So it looks like maybe next year it'll be back in person, but yeah, if you have any questions for me, feel free to ask. I know that you were already talking and have some things answered already.
I'll shoot if I can.
Yeah.
Mucho gusto.
Mucho gusto.
I watched your whole set. It was pretty cool. Tiara had lots of people and colors and dance and more than I'm planning to bring. So congratulations on that. That was quite a show.
Yeah.
In general, I guess the question that I have for you is, prior to Cedar, your life was what it was. You did an amazing job with your show. It was very cool. How's life different? How have things been going? I'll mute.
Amazing, actually. So I had performed before, but this was something that just brought me to a whole nother level. I feel like just looking at the grant application itself gave me a direction, because music was always important to me. It was always a big part of my purpose in life, but to be able to pinpoint what this next project was going to focus on and really think about the impacts that I wanted to make with this, I feel like just brought me to a whole nother level. And that's on top of, you know, having this super long interview that was posted with Ida, you know, so we were just given these opportunities that you don't usually get as an emerging artist. I felt really listened to, and then we were able to flesh out our ideas, and having these deadlines really helped me too. I don't think I would have completed this big of a project with such impact in that amount of time if it wasn't for this. So yeah, I think it gave me direction. It introduced people to me and my music, and just made me even that much more inspired and motivated. And now I have a whole other new group of folks who are musicians that I can jam with and be inspired by. And I think community is really important too, whether it's for your music or just your well-being. So yeah, in so many ways, it's helped me grow and made me so much more inspired and motivated.
It was very cool. Congratulations. I liked it.
Thank you. And to see all that talent come out of the Twin Cities, like, that's amazing. For sure.
So I've got one question here. I have a couple, but I just will, for the sake of time, I'll boil it down to the one. So I guess in the time of your commission period, so since you got the commission and the time that you were allotted to create, what difficulties did you face during that period, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, I think one of the hardest things for me was I have a son, he's going to be 2. And with COVID, you know, I thought I would be able to, you know, kind of hire babysitters so I could work on my music. But with COVID, it was like not really as much of an option. So that was really difficult. And I feel like for me, like, I made my outfit. I wanted to do more with like the synths. That was my intention. So because we had these dates and because we had these restrictions, I feel like maybe it wasn't up to the par that I was hoping for. Not in the beginning, but you know, once you like get your ideas and you're like, yeah, this is what it's gonna be, and I'm gonna, you know, have these songs and all of that. And so yeah, I think those kinds of restrictions just held it back just a little bit. But I will say, I wrote another grant to finish an album. So that was really interesting that this is something that we present. Yes, we have to get this music done, but it doesn't have to be recorded to the perfect extent that you want it to be. So I look at this like, wow, not only was it amazing to be able to, you know, have this performance on the Cedar stage, to meet these people, to have awesome video to use. for so many reasons, but also, you know, that gave me the time to write. I ended up writing 10 songs. So I'm like, okay, for the album, I want to have 13 and I want to, you know, add the synths that I wanted to add in the first place. So yeah,
Awesome.
nothing's ever perfect, but it's amazing.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it.
For sure.
Yeah, I have a question that isn't like totally related to like prior to getting the Cedar Commission, but the experience of performing on stage. So I'm sorry if I'm putting the cart before the horse. Can you describe what it feels like to be on stage, what the crowd is like size-wise, people-wise, like just, can you give us a couple of minutes of like what it felt like to be on stage?
Yeah, I had actually played at the Cedar once before with a group of mine. So it wasn't like Tiara, you know, but it was me performing and it was really cool. So I've seen the Cedar packed before. I don't know what the capacity is. A couple hundred, maybe. Robert would probably know.
Yeah, I think for Cedar Commissions, it's probably, you know, consistently we get between like 200 and 300 people a year. I think when
Yeah.
Dua was performing a couple of years back, that was like the most people that we had, was like maybe closer to 400. But yeah, a packed room at the Cedar is like 430 seated, or we can squeeze, well, pre-COVID, we could squeeze in like 600, 625, 645. So it's like, it's a good range there. Yeah.
Yeah. So for our year, you know, it wasn't a crowd like that. So I was able to bring in a couple of folks. We just made sure everybody had our test done within 72 hours. So we had close friends come and actually help out with some photos too. And just loading, honestly. So yeah, it depends on your year, I guess. But for us, I had maybe 15 of us in the room, including us on stage. And for me, I think it was kind of simple to try to bring that energy. But I know for a lot of folks, it's something you just gotta muster up in yourself. And when I think about performing to a camera that's going to be played later to other people, I think about how a coach was talking about football, and he was like, you don't want to run into this guy, you want to run through him, you know. And I think of that with performing, like you don't want to perform to the lens, like you're performing to the people through the lens, you know, and hoping to like bring them in. So just keeping that in mind with what you're doing was helpful for me. So yeah.
You guys definitely crushed it. It was cool.
Thanks. We had fun for sure.
So I got just one more question as it just relates to the writing of the actual grant. I know we kind of touched on it, but just to clarify, when I'm writing, you know, like what I want to allocate the money for, I can include that $500 stipend, correct? And I should include it, or?
That's a yes, right, Robert?
Yeah. Like indicate that it is the production stipend, right? And then break it down from there. So
awesome. Yeah. Thank you.
And then just read it and reread it a number of times, however many times it makes you feel good. I really looked at all the questions and what I wrote back and forth like multiple times to make sure.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Tiara, I've got another question for you.
Yeah.
So I have attempted like 3 or 4 times to do my 3-minute video and my 1.5-minute video. And I've failed at first by like 1.5 minutes, and I've got it down to like, dang, I'm so close. How do you feel? Like, do you have a feeling on, did you do video versus written on the you know, certain number of pages? Do you have any feelings on that? What's better?
Yeah, you're reminding me of my thoughts exactly when I was trying to do it. I was like, yeah, I'm going to do a video. I feel comfortable. They're going to hear what I'm saying. And I just felt like I had so much to say. So I just put it on paper. And at least in that case, you can make sure you get all your points across. And I don't know, maybe Robert, you have another outlook on it, on if you prefer written or video. But I will say too, you know, we all learn how to write essays in school, right? And I think that really applies to our grants. When folks are looking at a big number of grant applications, you want to know exactly what you're trying to do, like in your first sentence. Like, this is who I am, this is what my project is going to do, this is why it's different from anything you've seen and why it's necessary. And then go into what you're going to do. So yeah, I wrote it even though I didn't think I was going to, and I think it was good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It was good.
I'm so inspired.
I was just going to say, I think in terms of like video versus written, it's really depends on the person. You know, it's like I've seen quite a few people cram a lot, you know, and be able to say everything that they wanted to in those 3 minutes. And then I've also seen other people put together like, you know, very thorough, like written proposal. So both are effective. Both are definitely effective. I think some of the feedback that people had last year in terms of the selection panel is like some certain members on the selection panel had a difficult time with video and just like processing that type of information. It's just like they were a lot better with written word versus like people talking and sharing that audio and video. And so one of the requests this year is that, you know, for people who are making videos, just sending us that outline, like an outline of what you talk about, or a transcript. So
I can almost do both, like a little bit of an outline of what I'm talking about along with the video.
Mm-hmm.
Sweet, thank you.
Good questions. I don't know if you heard that. My son is in his crib downstairs trying to talk. I'm like, no, you need to be relaxing right now.
Hi, Osito.
He's been saying my name. He's like, Tiara, he just said it. I'm like, oh man, it's funny.
My youngest just graduated high school. I'm old.
Wow, congrats. That's what's up. You're ageless. One of the people that called to interview me asked, the first thing he said, he was like, how old are you? Like that, like really fast. Really, I was like, what did you say? It's like, how old are you? I was like, I'm ageless, and so are you. And then I told him I went to school with Philando. He's like, I'm gonna figure out how old you are. I'm like, that's okay. You can do whatever you want to do. That's just what I feel, and so that's what I say.
I could completely second that 100%, or I wouldn't be doing this at my age.
Hey man, age, you get wisdom with that. I actually have a event we're doing tomorrow. It's for this activity book that a foundation that I work with put together, and it's the intergenerational healing activity book called Hurt to Healing. So we talked to elders, mostly in St. Paul and the Rondo area, of how they got through, you know, civil rights movement and 94 coming through Rondo and all these things. And we put it in a book, and yeah, we're distributing it to schools. And so yeah, I will say that too. I'm a healer, and I definitely put that into my lyrics and what I was doing for my show. So anything else that you do in your life that you can bring into your music, I think is impactful and unique and important.
I think I just had one question for you, Tiara.
Yeah.
Just kind of like a last question. Well, we can keep asking a couple more questions, I guess, if you want. But I was just thinking, you know, one way to tie this off is like, what advice would you give to people who are applying for this? What things would you say in terms of what people should think about or articulate? You'd already shared a little bit in terms of like communicating your main idea right away. Mm-hmm. But like, what would you encourage applicants to do as they're drafting these applications?
Yeah, I think the point, like I said, to really look at what the application is asking for and then make sure that you're filling that in. And also too, making sure this is something you really want to do. I think if you're on this call, or if you even look up this link later, it probably means that you want to be doing this. But 30 minutes is quite a while. I think at first I was like, oh, it's going to be like 6 or 7 songs. But if your songs are 2-3 minutes, then, it's a lot of work. So you want to make sure that you're in it to win it right now. Like, this is what you want to focus on. You want to get it to be just full of what you're saying that you want to come across. You're making your music for a reason. And like I said, like, really make sure you say it in the beginning. So people know why you're doing what you're doing, whether that's healing you or healing others or both. And yeah, I know for me, during the time that the applications were due, we were talking about George Floyd, and we were talking about Elijah McClain, and we were talking about COVID, and these things like were impacting all of us. And I talked about how I want to confront that, but I talked about which kind of way. I want to write music for activists, but it's not like you got to be in the streets and be on the front lines to be appreciating my music. It's like, I want to talk about the different ways that you can be an activist. And part of that is taking care of yourself. Part of that is remembering your ancestors and how amazing they are and resilient. So yeah, I think the main thing is look at those questions and the points that you got to make sure you're filling it out, and really think about the different ways that, because maybe you don't know yet, maybe you don't even realize how you're impacting people with what you're doing. Maybe you started out doing music for yourself, and you can start to think about ways that maybe you've played in front of someone and you've changed somebody's mood for the day, or changed their mind, or like, think about how you impact people and put it on paper or put it in your video.
Really great perspective. Thank you.
For sure. Cool.
Quick question, in the spirit of what you were just talking about at the beginning of that. So your songs are a certain amount of length of time, your music in this is a certain amount of length of time, 30 to 45 minutes. I'm assuming the 30 to 45 minutes is the actual music time in addition to a little bit of interaction with the crowd. I don't know what the crowd's going to look like, but as we do our show, whatever the show looks like, for me personally, in my mind, I see it as a little bit of just like a quick introduction to song 1, song 2, song 3, song 4, what song 1 kind of means to me, or the bigger world, or whatever. 45 minutes max total, including in between time, correct?
To an extent, yeah. I know for us, it was a little different because we were able to make cuts. So in person, I presume that's going to be a little different. Because we would have times where we're switching out who's on which drum. And, I thought maybe that would be part of the time, and it wasn't. So yeah, it's always good to like know what something that you can vamp out on for a couple minutes if you need to, or like, let me just play these chords for a minute, feeling it,
yeah. Well, and like kind of right in the vein of what you're just talking about, like so far my music has a social aspect, has a meaning, has a strong message for myself personally. Just a little bit of time in between to say like, here's where my mind was at with this, or whatever, would be kind of cool.
Yeah, and I would say even for your own peace of mind, like I said, I recorded my whole scratch, even what I was gonna say before, and then I knew, I'm like, all right, I'm at about 32 minutes. So if we play things any faster, I just need to make sure we're like,
I'm worried about the other side of that coin. I'm worried about going over.
It's gonna be too long.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you time it,
see.
I mean, you got to practice
determined, right?
anyways.
They're not written yet, so who knows?